Recently, the governor of California, Gavin Newsom, he launched his podcast. And guess who he invited in his first episode? Charlie Kirk. He is the executive director of Turning Points USA. I wouldn't have been surprised if that conversation happened on a third-party platform. I wouldn't have been surprised if Gavin Newsom is not a sitting governor of California, a state with the largest GDP. I wouldn't have been surprised if Gavin Newsom invited another superstar, maybe a governor from a Democratic Party run state, or even an independent. No. He crossed over, invited someone from a conservative circle. Why I was so happy to see that? Because tolerance is one of my most important values. I honor it. I believe in it. That's why I was so excited when I witnessed these two gentlemen coming together to have that conversation on a platform by one of them. Of course, I'm not a political analyst. I'm not a Democrat or a Republican. I'm an independent. But I strongly believe that when we have strong oppositions, it's great for the greater good and also for a healthy democratic society. And I want to use this opportunity to share with you 3 of my overall observations and how you could be able to use some of the tips that I'm going to share to apply them in your personal life, in your career, in your leadership, and also in your business. Let's dive in. The first is creating and nurturing a corporate culture that encourages disagreement. I'm not talking about disorganized disagreement, toxic conflict. I'm talking about organized disagreement. The United States has a high political tolerance culture. When I first came to the United States, I felt at home. Why? Because I was born and raised in the eastern part of Ethiopia, a place called Harar. In that part of the world, the subculture encourages disagreement. Of course, the main Ethiopian culture, a little bit different. How? Because in Ethiopia, when we have differences, we battle them out in the battlefield. We fight. It's unfortunate. We don't settle our differences through dialogue. But in the subculture I was born, that was a very free culture where we were encouraged to disagree, even with our parents. We were so free that we use whatever language that we want. I remember we were using maybe hundreds of F words on a daily basis. We confront each other, disagree with each other. Our parents, they didn't pay attention. They hear us using the F word and so on, but they didn't care. That was the culture. Sometimes we fight, fist fight. And you forget about the fight in 5 minutes. The next day, you don't even remember that you were in fight with someone. You go out to play again. You go out to have coffee or go out to eat and so on. That was a very tolerant culture. I remember 1998, I visited Ghana. There was a conference organized by UNESCO and the All African Students Union. And I was invited to participate because I was the president of the Student Union of Addis Ababa University, the largest university in Ethiopia. When I went there, I was surprised. I felt at home because I witnessed Ghanaian youth, Ghanaian students having the same kind of culture like I had when I was in Harar. On the stage, they fight You even expect them to fist fight, some of them supporting the ruling party led by Jerry Rawlings, and some of them from oppositions. They battle out on the stage. We didn't have that when I was in Ethiopia. We didn't have that. It may lead to conflict and violence if we do that publicly in front of a camera from two different political views. That's not the culture I came from in Ethiopia. But when I went there, I was like, okay, these guys, they fight each other, they argue each other, but when the national anthem of Ghana played, they came together, putting their arms on the shoulders of each other and singing the national anthem as if they are from the same political party. When a traditional Ghanaian music hits, they stand and dance each other, playing as if they are from the same family. I was so excited. Actually, I shared this story 1,000,000 times because I was so proud of them, because these people on the stage, they fight, but off the stage, they're friends, they hang out and so on. Likewise, in the United States, you see, especially during election seasons, Democrats and Republicans, they battle out, especially in the chambers. When they leave, they go out, hang out together, have drink, go out, mingle, and so on and so forth. They may argue formally, but informally, they're friends. If a national interest of the United States is violated somewhere in the world, they come together as if they are one party. If a United States citizen is harmed somewhere, they come together. But recently, what I have noticed is that tolerance starts to be a little bit lower, less and less. I see some people from both parties being proud of shunning and ignoring and canceling the other side. I see people acting like this is a strength because they don't talk to the other side. This is very risky, because if you don't talk to your opposition, if you don't talk to the other side, things may boil up. Things may lose control. By the way, when you look back and study empires, one of the most important reasons why they fall was because of internal cracks, which means they had internal fights, corruption, and so on. The culture was not harmonious. They didn't have debate among themselves. They didn't argue about the policy that empire should pursue. And some of the functions, they wanted to have corruption. They want to destroy the other functions. They had this appetite, unrestrained appetite to expand and dominate everywhere, and that led them to fall. If they had a culture where disagreement was entertained and encouraged, they would have battled it out, and the best idea would have won, and they would have kept their empire. But having a culture that encourages conflict is not only important to national cultures, it's also important in corporations, at home, in the marketplace. Very, very successful corporations, they leverage their culture. Even during bad times, because they have this vibrant corporate culture, what happens? They could be able to thrive in the midst of challenges and down times. I can give you some examples of vibrant cultures. For example, Bridgewater is a multi-billion-dollar company in New York, founded by Ray value. This company has a culture called radical transparency, which means whether you are a CEO or just a new team member at the bottom of the hierarchy, you are expected to be transparent, provide feedback even to the CEO. Of course, there are other cultures. Some of them, they call their culture radical candor. Recently, I heard PBD, Patrick David, he's the CEO of Value Entertainment, and he said that one of the values is debate. And he explained how it works. And I see that in their podcast. They debate, argue during their podcast while it's live. There are a lot of benefits in having that kind of culture. First of all, you won't be jailed by the status quo. You encourage people to fight out their ideas, and the best idea wins. Plus, things don't bottle up. People don't develop bitterness, resentment, and blow it up at the end of the day when it becomes too much. They may become passive aggressive. But if you have that kind of culture, what happens? People become creative because they know that their ideas won't be belittled. They won't be discouraged to share even ideas that may seem very silly. That way, you benefit from that kind of vibrant culture. But here is a challenge. Forming a vibrant culture that encourages disagreement is a start of a great journey. The most difficult part of that exercise is to nurture, to make sure that that culture doesn't go wrong. You want to pay attention so that it doesn't decay. How do you do that? You make sure that you have some processes in place. You make sure that there are no discrepancies. You make sure that you have a way to clean and cleanse the culture. I was once tasked to do a consulting project. I was asked, would you please help us to see whether there is alignment, value alignment? And my job was to understand the espoused values and see whether these espoused values are respected, implemented on the ground. I was out there observing, asking questions, engaging in conversations before I go back and report whether there is alignment or not. In one of my conversations with a team member, I realized that some of the leaders, they don't respect some of the ground rules. The company, to implement this culture, they came up with some ground rules. And one of the ground rules was that if you see someone doing something wrong, if you see something and you want to help someone, first tell them. Don't report to anyone. Don't talk behind them. Just go there. Here is a format on how to provide feedback. Here is a template. Script out your feedback. Meet them one-on-one and give them feedback. If they don't implement the feedback, then maybe you can report them. This guy was serious and implementing that. But one day, he was in a cafeteria next to his boss. His boss was with other colleagues of his inner circle. One of the team members of that team came into the cafeteria and he was standing online and he was talking to the person next to him. And the boss had fun the way this guy was communicating. This guy was coming close to the other person when he was talking. And the boss was criticizing the guy. Look at that guy. He's making the other person uncomfortable. What a jerk, and so on and so forth. The boss maybe didn't notice his team member. Maybe he didn't care. This guy was very curious why his boss, who's supposed to create this harmonious culture, the guy who's supposed to be nice to everybody, is criticizing a team member to his colleagues from other teams. He felt that was disloyal, but he wanted to prove one thing. Maybe he's making fun because this guy is not making changes. And therefore he decided, I want to give feedback to this guy. He arranged a one-on-one and talked to this guy. The first question he asked was, have you noticed that when you speak to other people, you come close to them? He said, I don't know. Because that was his blind spot. He didn't know. Coming from a culture that's normal, I can tell you that he didn't know. It was a blind spot to him. Then he asked him a follow-up question. Did you get any feedback about this? He said, no, nobody told me. You are the first one. Now he knew that his boss was violating one of the cardinal ground rules. And he told me, you know what? I lost respect to my boss. I stopped providing feedback. I didn't take them seriously. After that, I was just like getting by. You see the power of implementing a culture and making sure that whatever you espouse is implemented and respected. This guy bought into the idea that we have this vibrant culture where we are transparent, we provide feedback, and here is some of the ground rules. And some of the leaders are not respecting that. And this person was discouraged. That's what's happening in a lot of organizations. They have good intentions. They have a vibrant culture on the paper, but it's not implemented. What I'm saying is that smart organizations, they understand the power of culture. Actually, Peter Drucker, the father of modern management, once said that culture eats a strategy for a breakfast. And those successful and highly competitive organizations, they have a vibrant culture that they leverage as a competitive advantage. People who are working for them, they cannot wait to come on Monday. They don't want to leave on Friday. They love that place. Even if they have better pays, opportunities, perks somewhere, they don't go. Why? Because of the culture. Actually, once I heard a very sad statistics. They were studying the day and the time many people experience heart attack. I was shocked but not surprised about the result. It was on a Monday between 8 to 9. People are so stressed to go to a workplace, maybe a toxic place, maybe a toxic community. They're stressing out and experiencing heart attack. The second one is coming up with a strategy that delivers results. When I noticed that the governor came up with an initiative, a bold initiative, and launched his podcast and invited in his first episode from the opposition, I knew that he might have one or two very strong, grand strategies that he's using the podcast to implement these strategies. Of course, I don't know. He may have a strategy to walk away from the far left, come at the center for 2028, or maybe to run for the presidency as an independent. I don't know. He and his team only knows that. I don't know. But one thing I want to tell you is that a strategy without the proper initiatives, it doesn't succeed. Which means coming up with a strategy is one thing. Implementing a strategy is totally different. Here is the most challenging thing I find, many people confuse strategy with vision and plan. When I see them making change, especially if they tell me that they are reinventing themselves, they are transforming themselves, their team, their organization, I ask them, what kind of strategy is going to help you achieve that? And when they tell me, in most cases, they're not strategies. Somebody may tell me that we want to be number one in this industry the next 3 years. This is just intention. At best, this is just a vision. Or they may tell me that in the next 3 years, we're going to raise this amount of capital. Or in the next 3 years, we're going to scale and sell our company. And I ask, what are your strategies behind scaling and exiting from your company? And what they tell me are not strategies. Let me explain to you what a strategy is by giving you 2 companies that chose 2 different strategies. Think about Walmart. Walmart, as a strategy, they compete with price. They produce goods that are cheap. On the other hand, Apple used its strategy to compete not with price, but with quality and simplicity. As you can see, the choices they made dictated the entire trajectory of these companies. One chose a strategy based on price, and therefore you can imagine its organizational structure, the people that the company attracts, the clients, the customers that are coming to the company, the vendors, the suppliers, and so on. You can imagine they're totally different than Apple. On the other hand, Apple, based on quality, it attracts what? People who are interested in quality, people who have the means to buy something expensive, which means a strategy dictates the entire direction of a team or an organization, which basically means strategy is a grand decision that you make or a bold choice that you make, which gonna cost you something. If you have a strategy and if it doesn't cost you, maybe it's a tactic, maybe just a goal. So when I saw a bold move by the governor, I knew that he has a strategy, and this strategy gonna cost him. So far, only Democratic pundits are the ones who are against his idea of talking to the other side. They disagreed with him about certain things, but so far he didn't experience any backlash. But believe me, as he keep on implementing the strategy, he will face some oppositions, pushbacks. Some people may leave him, and of course some people may come in to support him. At the end of the day, a strategy without cost, a strategy without some inconvenience is not a strategy. That's why I want you to revisit your strategy, your choice, your decision, and think about whether it costed you something or not, whether it's bold enough or not, whether it could be able to help you achieve your goals or not. Whenever I work with my coaches and clients, when they tell me that they are making major change, I want to know whether they have documentations that gonna guide them in that process. In most cases, these serious companies, they have a strategic plan at least. And when I look at the strategic plans, I see that in most cases, they have a strategic plan. And one thing I noticed is that they have almost the same template. You know why that happens? That happens because it's easy. These days, you have AI. You go out and type, I need template for my strategic plan. You could get that. It's easy. What I look from a strategic plan are a couple of things. The first thing I want to see is whether they have clear strategies, which means choices and decisions. I'm not looking for goals and vision and intentions first. The second thing I look for is whether they have initiatives to implement the strategy. Clear initiatives. I mentioned about the podcast. That's one of the initiatives. It's clear. To implement your strategies, you need initiatives. And I see that many organizations, they have strategic plan, but they don't have clear initiatives. The third thing I look for is metrics. Metrics such as KPI or objectives and key results. You can mix some of these metrics together, but you have to make sure that you track and measure success, which means even if you have great strategies, even if you have the documentation, even if you have initiatives, if you don't have a process to track and measure your success, what happens? You have strategies, but they're not implementable. They cannot be turned into results. Whenever I facilitate a strategic planning retreat or whenever I facilitate a workshop on strategic planning, one of the jokes that I make is that many strategic plans, they eat dust. Because organizations may have a ritual. They go out for a 3-day retreat at the end of the previous year or in the beginning of the new year. They have this exercise every year. They come up with a strategic plan. It will be shelved and it eats dust. When they meet again for the same ritual, they may ask, where was the strategic plan we came up with last time? They may go through it and see whether it was implemented or not, what kind of changes they should make. Others may revisit their strategic plan once in a while, in a meeting or in a quarterly evaluation, whatever. During that kind of situations, they may ask some questions. What were we discussing about our strategic plan last time when we met? Where are we on this? Where are we on that? As you can see, they are treating this casually. They don't have a process to make sure that the strategies are implemented, tracked, and measured. And you don't want that to happen to you. The third and the last one is adopting the key principle of mastery. When you watch Charlie debate with college students, you could be able to see that he mastered debate. When you watch his conversation with the governor, you could be able to see that he mastered communication. Here is the unfortunate thing. Many young people, especially those who debated with Charlie, they may think that he's gifted. They cannot be able to debate like him. They may discount themselves. Of course, I'm not saying that everybody should go out to debate. There should be a very strong reason why you should be a debater like Charlie. But for the cause that you have, for the passion that you have to pick a couple of skill sets and you have to master those skill sets like Charlie did. A couple of things I'm going to offer to you. The first one is to understand the principle behind. Mastering something is not a rocket science if you understand the principle. And the principle that I am very familiar with is called the 10,000 hour rule, which means if you spend 10,000 hours on a skill set, you could be able to master it. Of course, it's a bone of contention. There are people who argue that it's not the number of hours that you pile up. You should at least invest 10 years to master something. And of course, others push back and say, even if you spend that amount of years and time, you may not be able to achieve mastery if you don't pick a path for which you have a competitive advantage. They're right. Think about me. If I go out and say, you know what, I'm going to spend 10,000 hours to become a masterful basketball player. Hey, I'm short. I cannot be a masterful basketball player. I'm old. I cannot become a masterful basketball champion. I have to pick a path, a passion for which I have competitive advantage. Which means for you, first of all, figure out who you are. And then your mission in life, your calling, your passion. And then pick a couple of skill sets which are going to support you, which are going to help you to advance your mission. And then master these skill sets. They should not be more than 3 because you're going to be overwhelmed. Once you pick a skill or a couple of skill sets, the next thing you want to do is to come up with an action plan. If you get lucky, you could be able to reduce the number of hours, the number of years you should spend to master something. For example, you can have a mentor, coach, accountability partner. You can create venture with someone who is also working on that skill set. You can go out and find platforms. You could be able to shorten that because there are people out there who went ahead of you. They can shorten the time it takes you to master something. They can give you some tips, some strategies. They can make you accountable. They can provide platforms for you to practice. At the end of the day, you have to know that you can be great in the area of your passion, for your calling, for your mission in life. What it takes to be great in your own unique way is to find out those couple of skill sets, competencies, to pursue your passion, and then invest enough time to master them. If you do that, you could be able to succeed. We could be able to know about you. We talk about the governor because he's a masterful politician. We talk about Charlie because he's a masterful debater. Here is one thing I see from a lot of people. They start something. For example, they take a coaching session. They want to master something within 3 weeks. They start something on social media. When they don't get enough likes and comments, they drop the ball. They think that it's hard to master that. People are not supporting them, validating their decisions because they don't understand that. Mastery takes time. Once you master, it's hard to put you under the table. You shine, and people could be able to see that. You have mastery in that thing that you invested years and hours to develop that competency. Finally, let's conclude everything. The first thing we talked about is the importance of creating and nurturing a vibrant culture that encourages disagreement. When you do that, you're not jailed by status quo. You could turn conflicts into opportunities. You won't allow weak, mediocre ideas to prevail. You could be able to encourage your people to express, to be open, to share their ideas, and collectively create a harmonious environment where you could be able to achieve your individual and collective goals. The second thing is to have strategies, bold choices and decisions, and back them up with some initiatives that you can track and measure. The third and the final one is you can become masterful in some skill sets that are very important to you, to your company, to your business. And if you invest enough hours, enough years on a skill set, on a competency, you could be able to master it. Just go out, come up with an action plan, find people who could support you, go out and pay your dues. If you need any help in one or more of these areas, please reach out, and we want to support you. We want to help you advance your ability to succeed individually and collectively. Thank you very much for watching, and I look forward to see you in another video.